Hello, welcome to InfoFire, the fireside chat series from Information Matters. InfoFire brings visionaries, thinkers, and experts from across different domains to share their stories, insights, and perspectives. Each episode features a structured yet conversational dialogue with our guest centered around a specific theme. Through an organic storytelling format, we aim to trace the evolution of ideas, capturing not just key discoveries but also the journeys that led them to them, intertwining intellectual breakthroughs with personal experiences and historical context. Our goal is to blend the personal and the professional, offering a unique fusion of academic depth and narrative warmth. Each episode is a conversation between our guest and your host. I am Shalini Aras, your host for this series. I am an academic with more than 4 decades of experience in teaching and researching information. I founded two educational institutions, the International School of Information Management (ISIM) at the University of Mysore with a seed grant from the Ford Foundation. ISIM is the first high school in India, and the Myra School of Business with a focus on triple bottom line. In today's episode, I'm delighted to be in conversation with Ravi Venkadesan, one of India's most respected business leaders, renowned for his transformative leadership across technology, manufacturing, banking, entrepreneurship, and the social sector. Venkadesan served as chairman of Microsoft India from 2004 to 2011, during which he helped build India into Microsoft's second largest presence globally and one of its fastest growing and most respected markets. Venkadesan is a BTech from IIT Bombay, an MS from Purdue University, and an MBA from Harvard Business School, where he was a Baker Scholar. Ravi began his corporate career in the United States before returning to India to lead Cummins India. As chairman of Cummins India, he led its transformation into India's leading provider of engines and power generation solutions. Beyond Microsoft, Ravi has played influential roles in Indian business and public policy. He has served as chairman of Bank of Baroda, co-chairman of Infosys, where he helped steer the company through a challenging set of transitions. Ravi has also served on the boards of Harvard Business School, AB Volvo, Bunge, and Thermax. Ravi is the founder of Social Venture Partners India, a pan India network of philanthropists, and is a partner at impact investor Unitas Ventures. He was instrumental in creating Microsoft India's Project Shiksha, a computer literacy program which has so far trained over 40 million school children in India. He also helped establish the Cummins College of Engineering, India's first engineering college for women in Pune. Ravi is UNICEF's special representative for young people and innovation. He has also served as a trustee of Rockefeller Foundation. He is the founder of the Global Alliance for Mass Entrepreneurship GAME, a coalition which aims to create 10 million local entrepreneurs in India and Africa by 2030. He is an acclaimed author and thought leader. Ravi wrote Conquering the Chaos, Win in India, Win Everywhere, a widely regarded book on leadership and navigating complexity in emerging markets. Another book, What the Heck Do I Do with My Life? How to Flourish in Our Turbulent Times, has also been very well received. His work consistently emphasizes inclusive growth, ethical leadership, innovation, and the importance of creating opportunities for India's youth. He has been voted as one of India's best management thinkers by Thinkers 50 and Microsoft's Alumni Hero 2020. It's truly a pleasure and a distinct privilege to welcome Ravi Venkadesan for this fireside chat. Without further ado, let us turn to our guest and begin our conversation on the topic: Is this India's AI moment? Are we ready? Hello, welcome to the InfoFire podcast, Mr. Ravi Venkadesan. Today, we are going to be highlighting and emphasizing India's defining moment in this AI revolution. Artificial intelligence has rapidly transformed our daily life, the way we work, we learn, how the governments make decisions, how the businesses operate, in general, everything that we are doing today. However, we all know that AI is not just transforming but also posing different kinds of threats, including the existential threats. Whereas globally, it's more of the talk of the town is more about the job losses. But when it comes to India, perhaps the questions or the problems or the challenges that we face could be very different and also more profound than what it poses for the Western or the developed democracies or economies. For India, the problem or the challenge is different because the question here is not about whether it is going to create jobs or job losses. It's more about how it is going to affect us in different ways. For example, is it going to actually create more opportunities, the more I would say optimistic way of looking at it, or is it going to actually shrink the opportunities and create more inequality? Because it's going to definitely, if you look at the previous technological innovations or technological advancements, we have seen that they arrive more as shocks. For example, industrial revolution, it actually enormously enhanced productivity, but at the same time it actually collapsed the working conditions and the textile workers particularly and many other such workers. And it took more than 3 or 4 decades for the benefits of this industrial revolution to spread widely. So the probably today at this juncture in the AI revolution, we are probably faced with the same test. Is AI going to expand opportunities, create opportunity, or is it going to shrink? Is it going to, particularly for India, is it going to make more millionaires of millions of people, or at least if not millionaires, maybe is it going to create more opportunities for more Indians? Because we have seen in the past that you know the first wave of IT revolution, it created actually many opportunities, particularly for young Indians to enter the middle class through IT jobs, BPO jobs, and those kinds of jobs. It actually expanded our middle class. So today, at this moment in the AI revolution, we are going to be conversing with our guest, Mr. Ravi Venkadesan, who is a distinguished business leader and person who has championed the social impact causes, inclusive growth, and many things. In addition to leading the businesses as serving as the chairman of Microsoft India, chairman of Bank of Baroda, as well as serving as co-chairman of the board of Infosys and many other things. So I will not introduce or give more details of Mr. Venkadesan. Let us go straight to Mr. Venkadesan and then listen to him because we want to know his take because he has a very particular take on what AI or what is this defining moment of AI for India. Ravi, welcome to InfoFire.
Thank you, Shalini.
Thank you so much for agreeing to spare your time and share your perspectives, especially coming from a social impact leader such as you. So, the real question for India is about how we are going to shape the AI revolution in India, right? But before we delve into this topic, both I and our audience would like to know the defining moments in your life and in your career trajectory. What brought you here? How you became the Ravi Venkatesan that we know today?
Well, I doubt anyone is interested. But since you asked the question, I'd rather than think about defining moments, I would rather everybody think about defining experiences or crucible experiences, because it is these experiences that shape who we are, how we think, our leadership abilities, and so forth. And so, yeah, when I look back over my 60 years, I'd say there are many defining experiences, crucible experiences, starting with IIT. So I studied at IIT Bombay, and why it was such a important experience is for the first time, I met people like me who were much, much smarter than me. And it was actually a very humbling moment to be with people whose, at least their left brain, the analytical thinking was vastly superior to my own. But I was a very ambitious person. I wanted to do well. I wanted to be at the top of the class. So I said, okay, what this means is I have to work twice as hard. And yeah, so I developed my work ethic over there. I think coming to the US for graduate studies, spending a decade there, working there, studying at Harvard Business School was another um, crucible experience, not only because of the exposure of seeing the world more broadly, but at that time, and Shalini, I'm sure you and some of your readers or listeners know this, there were very fewer Indians and fewer Indians in professional life. And so I had the experience of leading American factories in Indiana and South Carolina, and being very different from everybody else. And that was a tough, tough, tough test.
Mhm.
I came back to India in 1996. I was 32 years old. And my first job was to turn around a very large failing joint venture between my company and Tata Motors. And I was completely
Yes.
unqualified for that job. It was a huge job and I was not ready for it. But that's why it was such an important experience, because it taught me about leadership. It gave me self-confidence, all those things. I
As the
think,
saying goes, the tough get when it is tough, the tough get going, right?
yes,
Yeah.
I think Microsoft was another crucible experience. Coming from a manufacturing background, no knowledge of software, to um, suddenly be at the helm of Microsoft in India and build that business was a very good experience, but a very tough one. So, yeah, so like this, there were
Like
five, six, 10
defining
defining
moments.
experience, not moments. They're not,
Would you call them as turning points?
yeah, they were each turning points, but they were experiences that lasted a number of years. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like one moment. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So, Ravi, you frame AI revolution at this juncture as a defining moment for India. So, before we
Yes.
get into the specifics of this AI as a defining moment for India, as I mentioned earlier, and as you have mentioned in your writings, particularly I've picked it up from there, that the technological shocks of the previous technological innovations, we have learned some brutal lessons because that increased inequality in Britain because it. So my
Yes.
question to you is, applying that historical lens today, what is the single biggest risk that you see of India repeating that, and how we could avoid it, perhaps,
I
if you
actually
don't get
think
it
there are
right, right?
yeah, I think there are two major risks for us as a
Mm-hmm.
country. One is that if we completely rely on markets and companies, large companies, to do the right thing, I think we're going to be quite disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
So what I think we need to figure out what interventions we need to make from a regulatory standpoint and a policy standpoint to ensure that companies behave responsibly in this transition. Otherwise, what will happen is that they will capture all the productivity benefits for themselves and their shareholders and dump the transition costs on society and the taxpayer. So that is not something any country should allow, and certainly for a country like ours, um, that is even more important. So that's one risk. The bigger risk actually is that we fail to see and seize the AI opportunity for us. Um, I think what's really important to understand is India's approach to AI has to be very different from the US. In the US, everybody is already in formal employment, and you have a lot of services jobs like lawyers and doctors and accountants and consultants and software developers and whatnot. They're already high wage, high productive people. And AI has the likelihood of replacing a large number or displacing a large number of them. And so it's a bigger threat. In India, only 10% of our people are in the formal economy. 90% are in informal jobs like farm workers, construction workers, small businesses, kirana shops, small manufacturing businesses. And these are extremely low productive, low wage kind of roles. And AI has great opportunity to be used to improve productivity, help them grow their businesses, etc. So this could do for India what the Industrial Revolution did for Britain or electrification did for America in the early part of the 20th century. And so we cannot afford to miss this bus.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad that you, particularly as a business leader, I mean, representing the corporate sector, because generally I mean, this is my take as an academic. Generally, corporate sector is kind of not so, I would say, welcoming of the regulation, governance part of it. I'm very glad that you
Yes,
say that responsible governance is, I mean, from the corporate sector is required, especially at these junctures, and so
yes,
that we can, I mean, you mentioned, for example, somewhere in your writing that we should not, as Eric Brenholm says, Turing trap. We should not get into the trap of increasing inequality, right? And for that, you naturally highlight that, we should be, as you mentioned just now, more about, what I am actually reusing your word, engineering adaptive changes,
yeah,
institutional
yeah,
and such. Could you
that's right.
highlight or expand on what kind of, adaptive changes that you
Sure.
expect?
So again, look, the best way to understand what's going to happen is to look at lessons from history.
Yeah,
So as you pointed out in your introduction, for the first 100 years, the Industrial Revolution was brutal for English workers, for mill workers, and so on. And then there was fairly enlightened progressive legislation that was introduced, which caused the prosperity to be more broadly shared.
yeah,
And so the legislation included, for instance, recognizing labor unions. The advantage of that is workers could get
yeah,
together and bargain with employers for a greater share of the benefits. There was the Factories Act, there was the Public Health Act. This regulated the terrible conditions in the factories. So that was very important. They banned child labor because they were using, Charles Dickens talked about, like
yeah.
David Copperfield. It was about child labor. They banned that. They introduced compulsory education. So it was a bunch of regulatory changes that allowed this prosperity to be shared. So we have to do the same thing today, but not wait for 100 years because that would
I
be
know.
quite bad. So, for instance, what are some of the things that you have to do? One is you have to change the education system. You have to introduce not only technical and skills, AI skills in the curriculum, so everybody grows up learning how to use these tools. But also, we have to teach entrepreneurship. In this century, the idea of a stable job leading to a stable career doesn't exist, but there are plenty of opportunities. So we have to teach young people how to see and seize these opportunities with an entrepreneurial mindset. So we have to introduce more vocational skills, practical skills, because AI is not going to replace the plumber and the electrician and the carpenter soon. Someday maybe robots might, but certainly in the next decade or so, these vocational skills are still going to be important. So we have to fundamentally transform the education system. Then we have to make AI accessible to all. So in India, one of the best things that has happened in the last decade is the work led by Nandan Nilekani to create what is called the India Stack, which is everybody has digital identity, everybody is connected to, via their phone to their bank account. They can transfer payments instantaneously. So this now today, 1 billion people access the internet using the phone, 500 million transacting every day. So we have to create the equivalent of the Indian AI stack. So every person, a frontline ASHA worker, a farmer, a laborer is able to access this cost effectively. So that's who's going to pay for that. So again, that's got to be the companies that are going to be increasing their profits using AI. So this is why you need regulatory interventions of this sort. There are a lot of people who will lose their job. That's the brutal reality. Hopefully, we can reskill them for something else. Who's going to pay for the reskilling costs? Who's going to pay for the transition costs? There has to be some sort of a social safety net, unemployment benefits, you know? And so, again, the question is who designs these social nets and who pays for them?
Yes.
That's an example of the kind of interventions that are going to be required.
Thank you for this kind of a perspective, which is not very common. I wouldn't say rare, but it's not very common because everybody is talking about job losses, what AI can do, etc. And I mean, you mentioned about vocational training. If you remember, right, in India, I mean, in the earlier generation, like in the 60s or maybe around that time, we had this job vocational training, etc., for a different kind of an industrial revolution, right? The ITIs, for example. Do you think that we again need to reinvent those kinds of institutional training institutions, right? New kind of IT
Absolutely. Absolutely. And fortunately, the government realized that some years ago and some under what's called the new education policy.
policy.
There is a great emphasis on combining the traditional education with the practical vocational skills.
Yes,
But how that is actually implemented is still a work in progress. But
that's
at least the thinking is there.
yeah. Because if you go by our own past example or experience of vocational training, somehow they were not really very successful. I mean, they we trained a whole lot of people under
No, no, no.
ITIs.
But the
Yeah,
real issue is not the training,
yeah,
Shalini. The real issue is we have a caste system mindset. Okay.
I know.
So we still think a college education and a desk job in an air-conditioned place is much better than somebody who's welding and putting together a ship, or somebody who's an electrician and doing that kind of work. So we still have a unhealthy disdain
For
for physical work. And so this Brahminical thinking is still alive in some way.
yeah. We have somehow, kind of, I would say, introduced or imbibed caste system across in the
Yeah,
sense whether it is jobs or, kind of class of work
sure.
you do and all of that.
Yeah,
And even including, institutions or I would say even disciplines. I
yeah.
mean, someone who studies, of course, computer science or engineering or medicine is put on a higher pedestal than someone
Yeah,
who studies
but that's true not just in India, it's true in the United States.
that's true.
And
That's
so I think the US has the same challenge and crisis right now.
That's true. So, drawing upon, coming to my next question to you, drawing upon Nobel laureate Edmund Phelps, you talk about the fact that true prosperity comes when innovation is widespread, right? Not confined to a small elite. So,
Yeah.
my question to you, how do you see AI accelerating rather than stifling this mass innovation?
Yeah. So you brought up Ned Phelps, and I think he won the Nobel Prize for his work on mass flourishing in 2006. And what he pointed out is societies become prosperous
Mhm.
when technology is diffused broadly and where the humblest, most ordinary person feels empowered to invent, improve things, tinker, start in business, etc. So if you look at America's great success in the 20th century, again, it was because ordinary people could do extraordinary things. Think Thomas Edison or an Isaac Singer or John Deere who invented the
Yeah.
tractor or Cyrus McCormack who invented the harvester, combine harvester, and so on. They didn't go to college and all that. So the same thing is happening in China today. So if any country, whether it's India or any country, wants to be prosperous now, they have to figure out not just how to get their every last person using AI, but building with AI. So we have to combine entrepreneurship with AI. So we get, that 21-year-old kid who's gone to some third tier college, graduated, doesn't have a job, is unemployable, will never have a job. Instead of sitting at home getting frustrated, how do you get them to use AI to dream of some business they can start in their own place, you know, and
That's true.
slowly, grow that business. So if we can get first a few, then many, many more, and then millions using AI to imagine businesses, build these businesses, then essentially it's going to be a whole new wave of prosperity. And whether we're talking about the United States or whether we're talking about India, that's what we have to get to. Because what's going to happen, Shalini, is there will be job losses, but then as more and more people start inventing new businesses, there will be no new job creation. So we'll get on the other side. Point is, do we take 100 years for this to happen, or can we compress it to 10, 20 years?
That's true. Yeah, I mean, as actually Eric Brinhofer said that, it's not about replacing, but augmenting. So as you said,
Yeah.
AI should augment humans as well as whatever endeavors that humans want to do it, right? Whether it is a business or whatever small or big business, I think that's the way forward, and probably that is going to happen through various kinds of, platforms and things like that.
It won't. No, my point is it's not going to happen.
No, I know
We
you.
have
I get
we
your
have
point. Yeah,
we have to make it
make
happen.
it happen. That's right. I
Okay,
mean, yeah,
if we just leave it to chance, it'll probably take a very different turn and a nasty turn,
has to
and
talk.
then people will revolt, and we'll get some new tyrant or dictator who promises that they'll overturn this. So yeah, so that we don't want to go down that path.
Yeah, I agree. I'm total agreement with you on that because everything, we have to make it happen.
Yeah.
Small or big, we have to make it happen. So that is true. And then how we make it happen, it takes a lot of, planning, lot of
Yes.
involvement and everything. That's true of everybody, including the
Yeah.
government, because much of it is,
Yeah.
in the hands of the government. And as you said, responsible regulation or
Yeah.
responsible AI is also important, right? See, one other thing that I'm really very happy and intrigued by your, perspective on AI is that you very powerfully and rightly frame, say that it is going to collapse or collapsing India's mobility ladder. That's true because we have seen how the first wave of IT revolution
Yeah.
brought in, with all this BPO jobs, etc. Many people from the lower rungs of the economic or social
Yeah,
ladder
all of
could
us.
enter. Yeah. So that is probably the biggest threat that you say, right? So this mobility collapse, as you frame it, is very critical for us. So my question to you is, what is your take on how are we going to avoid or sidestep or navigate this problem, mobility collapse? Not navigate. Actually, we need to avoid it, right?
Yeah, so what is mobility collapse? Look, for the longest time, last 30, 40 years, there has been a wonderful pathway for many of us, including myself, to come out of poverty.
That's true.
And the way out of poverty is education, leading to an IT job, and that puts you in the middle class.
Middle class.
And then you educate your children, and then they become affluent. So this beautiful escalator has been working for 30, 40 years. What is mobility collapse is if these entry level jobs in IT, in BPO, in banking and financial services go away, get automated away, then it is not just going to result in unemployment, it's going to be resulting in the loss of aspirations and dreams. And that will be quite terrible because our country is very young. And so we have 300 million young people, and they're going to be sitting at home, getting frustrated and becoming terrorists, dysfunctional.
Yes.
So we have to do everything possible in the next decade to work with large employers like Infosys or Mahindra or Tata, Reliance, HDFC to try and not shift the narrative away from automating jobs to growing faster with AI. And how do we transform the workforce? How do we reskill people, help them move to the new roles that are there? Now, this sounds plausible in theory. It's incredibly hard to do. It is incredibly hard to do because it's not just teaching your employees how to use, Claude or use AI, work with AI agents. It's fundamentally about getting people to develop human skills, to develop judgment, context awareness, critical thinking, be more, adaptive. And this is going to be quite hard for people to learn. But we're going to have to do that, as I talked about in the opening as well. There are going to be substantial costs for such reskilling and training, and we have to figure out how we essentially put a tax on these employers so that these costs can be covered. And we have to have social nets, safety nets. This- We don't know all these answers,
That's
but we're
right.
going to have to start working with some of the best firms so that they can become successful exemplars or case studies for others to follow.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to do. I'm setting up something called the Institute for Human Flourishing. And one of the first agenda items of this institute is going to be working with large, successful companies like HDFC Bank and Infosys to try and help them with this transition and showcase their responsible transition.
Yeah, thank you for that insight. I too believe that, in fact, generally I am considered as because of these kinds of, my thoughts about, corporate responsibility when it comes to this. Because from my own kind of an experience, I have been I would say, beneficiary of the Ford Foundation grants, large ones
Mhm.
in the past. Some of my endeavors were funded by the Ford Foundation. I do know that, some of these taxation policies were the
Mm,
reason why these foundations were set up in the US for supporting
mm,
activities, both in,
mm,
for that matter, in fact, one other example that comes to my mind is that, of
mm,
course, a personal one in the sense of Carnegie Mellon. He
mm,
actually, rather, his father lost his job due to the Industrial Revolution. He was a textile worker or something. And then they
mm,
migrated to the US. He worked,
mm,
also did not have formal education. He worked and then he made humongous amount of money, but
mm,
he also became a great
Plan.
philanthropist.
Right.
Carnegie Mellon, I mean, Carnegie, in fact, he was responsible for the public library movements, etc. So I agree with you totally on that, that these kinds of, government plus organization, I mean, industry behemoths, whether it is HDFC or Infosys or whichever, they have
Yeah.
a collective responsibility to bear this cost, right?
So AI is going to come as a shock to all of us,
That's true.
institutions, banks, governments, individuals, and therefore the response also has to be all of society. It can't just be government, it can't just be these large companies. We have to figure out how to get everybody working together to adapt to this new world that we are heading into.
Yeah. So in that sense, the CSR Act of, I mean, talking about the
Yeah,
corporate, it's been a good one to some extent, actually. Do you think that it has
definitely.
spurred some, yeah,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. When it came, everybody was howling in
Yeah.
protest, saying this is just another way of taxing us. But I think it has been incredibly enlightened and created a pool of social capital that has allowed for a lot of good things to happen. Sure, some of it is wasted. There is some
That is,
corruption and fraud and all that stuff on the margins, but overall, it's been very positive.
yeah. I mean, that is,
Um,
I would say, on par, right? Like, par for the
yeah,
course.
yeah.
Corruption or, leakages, etc., happen, whatever you do. That's true.
Yeah, but I think it's, relatively under control.
Yeah.
Shalini, how shall we accelerate the pace?
Of our interview? Okay.
Yes,
Fine, sure. Okay, I'll come to one of my pet question, I would say. You were talking
sure.
about the revolution and how the first wave actually brought in these people into the middle class, and I liked your mobility ladder concept. But today I see, when I, like, particularly in India, when I was in Bangalore, I was using this Pronto for domestic help and all that. So I see that, or even Ola or Uber drivers, and I always talk to the drivers, and then these people,
Hmm.
because they are the new sort of BPO kind of workers. Because Pronto, I was very happy to see that, because I spent some time in Bangalore, whereas
Hmm.
in Mysore, so in my Bangalore, I have a place, but I don't have a permanent setup, right? So Pronto was very helpful. I could get domestic help. The thing that I liked also is, I think at least what those girls told me is their conditions are quite good, salary wise and other things. So my question to you is, there are these things happening in a way, even in the platforms are creating,
Hmm.
going to the next level of, bringing in this people, more inclusive growth, to use your
Hmm.
general philosophy. Don't you think that is already happening to some extent?
Definitely. It's been happening. The so-called gig economy
Gig economy, yeah.
has been growing by leaps and bounds. And whether we look at, uh, you know, the food delivery platforms like Swiggy and Zomato, or
Yeah.
whether you look at package deliveries or what is called quick commerce with Blinkit and Zeptos, or whether you look at a Pronto, then of course transportation with Namma Yatri
Um,
and Uber and whatnot. These are all platforms for the gig economy. The question is, and how do you make it decent work? Okay, how do you prevent exploitation and allow these people to live with some dignity? And that's where, again, regulation is essential
I agree.
because you can't just leave it to this company
Yeah.
and that does a good job and somebody else is exploiting. I think there has to be some fair standards. But I think they're a very incredibly important part of the whole employment and work puzzle going forward.
Yeah, that brings us to, you already mentioned about your idea and your Institute for Human Flourishing. So, my question to you is, your Institute of Human Flourishing, can you just outline very briefly what exactly is the thing that you expect it to do?
Yeah, so we recently in February had a AI summit in Delhi, which was quite a success organized by Government of India. As part of that, I was asked to chair an expert group on human flourishing, which is how do we make sure that India, we use AI to
Mm-hmm.
benefit many people, not just a few elite. And we had our consultations and produced a report. But one of the most important things is this idea that beyond the AI summit, we need a center of capability that is able to think deeply about the issues we've talked about, to advise the government and society on the policies that are going to be required, to work with private sector on this responsible transition, to develop programs that allow the weakest and the most marginalized to have access to AI and use AI to lift themselves, etc. So we're in the process of establishing this. Hopefully, in the next few months, we will already have a young woman CEO for this. And there are sort of three big challenges that we're going to focus on. In the short term, we're interested in working with big companies and helping them with the responsible transition with their workforce. The second big agenda is how do you get the least productive parts of our Indian economy using AI? So small businesses, small shopkeepers, farmers, and so on. And then the third and long-term agenda is getting more and more people using AI to start new businesses, imagine new businesses, and so on. So this is what the Institute will hopefully do. In this, it'll work with everybody. It'll work with government, it'll work with private sector, it'll work with social sector organizations, academic institutions, and so on.
Thank you. So that will probably kind of, usher in what you call as the mass entrepreneurship. I'll come to that later.
Yeah,
I mean, my
yeah,
final
but I
question
think
is going to be.
we need many such catalytic institutions. This could be one.
One of them. Because you are rightly highlighted that in India, we need to look at AI bringing in, or rather, enhancing productivity in agriculture and small farm, or maybe farmers and such sectors. So, do you think that these kinds of institutions, one of them at least that you are talking about, the human flourishing, would focus on some of these, what I
Yeah,
call
absolutely. That's
unread
exactly what we are setting it up for.
farm agriculture, yeah, agriculture, healthcare, particularly, AI is going to help. So my final question to you is about one of your, endeavors, that is, Global Alliance for Mass Entrepreneurship. It has many inspiring stories of how AI tools help around 75,000 women entrepreneurs double their income. So would you like to share some stories, and then, we'll end with the positive note that you have tried to make it happen and it will happen.
Yeah, so we've been working in game for the last 18 months with nearly 1 lakh small women-owned businesses.
Mhm.
Many of them are really small. And the way we have been helping them is getting them to list their products on Amazon and sell on Amazon. That turns out to be actually quite a big challenge because before you can sell on Amazon, you have to do a lot of things to set your house in order. And but it has been extremely successful program where on average for 92,000 of these businesses, they've doubled their income in 1 year. But what we found is, for instance, that the time to actually get ready to list your product and business on Amazon is about 6 to 8 weeks. For instance,
Okay.
you your product,
Mm-hmm.
even to display the image of the product, Amazon has a lot of requirements.
Mm-hmm.
Then how do you describe let's say you're making millet-based snacks
Mm-hmm.
or you're selling honey or some handicrafts.
Sorry.
So generating the description for that. How should you price this?
Mm-hmm.
Poor woman has no idea how to price this. So what we have done is built AI tools for this, and now they should be able to list their products in 2 days instead of 6 to 8 weeks. Then what we did is conducted very basic AI training
Mm-hmm.
for nearly a lakh of these businesses. And the way they access AI is through WhatsApp and Instagram. And they access AI through by using voice in our own languages like Marathi or Gujarati or Hindi and so forth. And many of them have seen extremely good benefits in terms of getting their questions answered. So what we're just scratching the surface right now, Shalini, but it shows that given even a little bit of a chance and a little bit of support, people, even the poorest and the most marginalized people, are able to, use the technology to great benefit. And so our thesis is getting validated. Now, of course, India is a huge country with lots of challenges, so we have to figure out how to scale it.
Yeah, nice. Thank you. In fact, Abhijit Banerjee, the Nobel laureate in
Yeah,
economics, in their work in poor economics, that's what they talk about. Small little interventions. Sometimes the
yeah,
small little, obstacles actually make children drop out of school, and then small little, help will also help them move forward. I guess that's
right.
what is more important here than your work that you are doing. Sometimes,
Yeah,
small hiccup, even for us, we have this initial inertia to start anything new gadget or new thing, right? So
yeah,
even so-called people who with technology background or technical thing, we are little I mean, we have that inertia. And I guess, that's kind of a push, a little push or nudge, as another Nobel laureate has said, the
yeah.
nudge is what is required.
The
And
nudges are
but
important.
yeah, nudge is what is required. So I think with this kind of a, I would say, your vision and as well as your idea of mass entrepreneurship, as well as, I'm very happy that you also put the entire responsibility only, not only on government, but also on
Private sector.
corporations and all of us together. We probably should try and make it happen. As you said, intervene and make it happen. Thank you so much for this opportunity
Thanks,
to.
Shalini. And I want to appeal to your listeners, your audience, to find a way to support our work.
Sure.
And so, if anyone's excited about it after this and they're interested, they can connect via LinkedIn, and we will need support from everybody. So, I'm going to use this opportunity to say, please help if you're inspired.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
take care. Bye.